Today on a spicy production, we're doing bone broth. That's right, I have a whole bunch of chicken parts. I tend to save them up over months at a time. After Thanksgiving, we have boned out turkeys, we have pieces of chicken in there, chicken wings, all kinds of stuff. Right here I'm putting in some mirepoix. It's a good way to get rid of your slimy carrots and half bad onions and celery that's getting limp. Throw all that in the oven for about 10 to 20 minutes just to get the vegetables and the tops of the chicken a little bit dried out. Throw some olive oil on there. Typically at this stage I would also put some tomato paste in, but I didn't have any. Now you're going to want to toss all that stuff around and get everything coated good. The whole goal here is to get some deep browning on the vegetables and the chicken bones, turkey bones, and everything that's in there. Put it back in the oven, 400. About an hour, hour and a half later, this is what you got. Pour in a bunch of water. I ended up using about 8 quarts. Push everything down as best as you can. This is going to cook for a long time. You want as much of that brown deliciousness in contact with the water as possible. The point is to leach all the protein out of the connective tissue. We want that gelatin. Put this in the roasting oven outside for 12 hours. I did it outside so it doesn't smell at my house. Got that tip from Adam Brucia. I had to tie it down because we have raccoons where I live. They'll get into just about anything. Now we're going to reveal the deliciousness underneath. Drum roll, please. There it is. That's that deep browning that you get from putting it in the oven. When this broth comes out, you'd swear it was made with beef bones. Now we have a few more steps. We have to get all the solid pieces out. So I'm going to get all the big pieces out with a pair of tongs and a bowl. And you want to save all those pieces so that you can squeeze out as much of that liquid as possible later. The point is you want to get as much of this liquid as you can. You want to get as many of the solids out as you can. The more clear you have your broth, the better it's going to be, especially once we reduce it down into a reduced stock. I'm hesitant to call it a demi-glaze because it's not made with beef or veal. Here you see me using a fine mesh bag as a strainer to get the small stuff out. And there's the stock we end up with. Here I'm putting some ice cubes in just to cool it down because it needs to be room temperature or colder for the next step. I'm not worried about watering it down at this point because I know I'm going to be reducing it down later. Here I'm just separating some eggs. End up giving the yolks to the dogs. Or save them for something else. If you just want to cook some egg yolks, go ahead. They're pretty delicious. Right now all we need is the whites and a little bit of water. What's going to happen here is the egg whites are going to go into the pot of stock. Then we're going to bring it up to a simmer. As we do that, the egg whites will start to coagulate, and when they coagulate, they'll drag up all the particulate matter with them to clarify your stock. It's a great method. It's a French method. I also saw Adam Brucia use this method as well as Chef John, I do believe. But it's a classic technique that's been around for years and years. watch the time lapse and you'll see the egg raft come up to the top. And with it, it's pulling a lot of junk out of that stock. Look at that. Now I typically just try to bring it up to a simmer. I went a little overboard on this one and I got it up to a boil. And if that happens, what ends up going on there is you'll end up breaking up the raft, and then it's more of a pain to get out. But again, fine mesh strainer, fine mesh bag, we got it taken care of. Now I moved it over to my stove, and it's just got to sit there on a simmer for several hours. So 4 hours later, here we are. Simmered down just over half, and then we're going to jar it up. It's reduced actually by over half. I figure we probably lost a little liquid, but I only ended up with 3 quarts out of the deal, and I started with 8. That's going to be delicious in anything you make with it. Soups, gravies, mashed potatoes, anything you want to pour it into. One thing about this stock is since we reduced it and it's full of so much gelatin, it's going to gel in the fridge. It's going to look like Jell-O in that jar. The cool thing about that is all the fat that floats up to the top, you'll be able to skim off with a spoon when you open the jar, as long as it's still cold. It naturally will separate because the fat floats on the liquid phase, as you see in that jar there. So that's how we make bone broth. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.